A funeral for a 90-year-old is often called a joyous funeral. In Minsuin village, Fan Xingli's father passed away. At that time, cremation was not yet widely practiced. So following old customs, the body was kept at home for 3 days before burial. During this period, the descendants had to stay by the coffin all night, a tradition called keeping vigil. However, Fan Xingli had no siblings and had to keep vigil alone. On the third night, a villager named Fan Urban, known as a troublemaker, offered to help him. Touched by this rare act of kindness, Xingli didn't think much and went to bed. As soon as he closed his eyes, he dreamed of his father floating to his bedside. Xingli was so startled that he sat up in bed. "It's not even the seventh-day return of the soul. Why are you back early?" His father was furious and scolded him, saying, "I cared about my reputation in life, and now, right after my death, you have disgraced me." Xingli was confused and wanted to ask more. But before he could, his father's figure disappeared. Although Xingli knew his father was hinting at something, he couldn't understand. After the funeral, he went to a neighboring village, drowning himself in alcohol. Feeling troubled, people tried to console him, but he confided that when he rushed home at midnight, he found his wife missing. Even after searching his mother-in-law's house, she was nowhere to be found. Someone jokingly suggested she might have eloped. As people were talking, the funeral host urged him to hurry up, as it was time for the burial. Traditionally, friends and relatives followed behind the coffin in a procession. As the only son, Xingli walked at the front with his wife. Just as they were leaving the village, dark clouds gathered and thunder rumbled, signaling a heavy storm. The funeral host urged everyone to move faster. As they neared the burial site, a loud thunderclap erupted, followed by a bolt of lightning. The lightning seemed to have a mind of its own, striking a large tree beside the coffin procession. The thick tree was instantly split in two, and one part fell heavily onto the coffin. Everyone was shocked. No one had ever seen such a bizarre incident at a joyous funeral. They quickly rushed to check the coffin for damage. The moment they lifted the lid, Xingli ran forward to take a look, and was immediately paralyzed with fear. Inside the coffin, lying atop his father's corpse, was a woman. Her face was rotting, looking even more decomposed than his father's. At that moment, Xingli recalled his father's words in the dream about his tarnished reputation. Upon closer inspection, people gasped in horror. Wasn't this his cousin's wife? How did she end up in a coffin? His cousin, Yu Kai, wailed in grief upon realizing it was his wife. The police were immediately called in to investigate the cause of her death. They questioned everyone present, and since Fan Urban was the only outsider who had participated in the vigil, he was quickly taken in for questioning. Under scrutiny, he confessed to having an affair with Yotsai's wife for many years. Yu Kai worked as a laborer far from home, sending money back every month. His wife would then invite Fan Urban over to drink and feast. Over time, their affair deepened. One day, she said to him, "You're with me now, but are you truly loyal to me? If you don't take me away with you, you'll never have peace." Fan Urban, irritated by her demands, suddenly had a murderous impulse. In a fit of rage, he killed her, not wanting to deal with her body. He initially staged it as a suicide by hanging it from the ceiling. However, just a few days later, Xingli's father passed away. Thinking he was clever, Fan Urban decided to place the corpse inside the coffin, believing that once the coffin was buried, everything would be settled. As the coffin was being sealed, he even muttered, "Father, forgive me, but I'm sending you company on your journey." He believed he had perfectly covered up the crime, but he never imagined that lightning would expose everything. Fan Urban was sentenced to death, and his remains were taken by his wife. His ashes were not allowed to be buried in the ancestral grave. Over a decade has passed since then, and strangely, not a single blade of grass has grown over that burial spot. The villagers began speculating that it might be a legendary corpse-nurturing ground. The coffin shop owner, a friend, Duan, noticed something odd. Every night, at nearly 3 a.m., a dim light would appear in a nearby apartment. He could faintly see a man sitting by the window reading. It puzzled him. How could anyone read in such poor lighting? Each time, the light would stay on for exactly 5 minutes before gradually dimming again. Out of curiosity, DeMao bought a telescope to observe. One night, close to 3 a.m., he found a perfect vantage point and waited. As expected, the light came on. The man was still sitting in his usual spot, reading. Taking a deep breath, DeMao peered through the telescope. This time, besides a man, he saw a woman mopping the floor. She was wearing a red nightgown, her long hair covering her face. The two never interacted. DeMao, finding it boring, decided to stop watching, until the man suddenly turned and looked directly at him. The man's face was stiff, his eyes eerily white. A chill ran down DeMao's spine, and he recoiled in fear. When he looked again, the apartment had gone completely dark. That night, he felt feverish, but had no actual fever when he checked at the hospital. A doctor told him it was just his imagination. Trying to calm his nerves, DeMao focused on writing horror stories. But as 3 a.m. approached, he dared not look outside again. Then he heard the sound of water dripping. Thinking it was a leak, he groggily went to the bathroom, only to freeze in terror. The woman in the red nightgown was inside, mopping the floor. Her eye sockets were hollow. Wasn't she from the apartment across the street? How did she get here? Panicking, DeMao turned to run, only to see the man sitting at his desk inside the room. He was still reading, in the same posture as before. DeMao knew he was in grave danger, but kept silent. As he tried to escape, neither the man nor the woman acknowledged his presence. Finally, he managed to flee to his friend Wang Xiaoping's house. Wang suspected DeMao was hallucinating from writing too many horror stories. But after hearing about the haunted apartment, he suggested investigating. The local night security guard, Li De, immediately turned serious. That apartment? You mean the one that's been empty for a year? It turned out the previous tenants, a couple, had died there. The man, Li Zhongping, was pressured by his girlfriend's family to obtain a higher education degree before they could marry. Struggling, he studied late into the night, but eventually, despair took over and he committed suicide. The girlfriend, unable to bear his death, followed suit. Li De advised DeMao to apologize to the spirits. Feeling moved by their tragic love story, DeMao and Wang Xiaoping went to the apartment. Inside, it was empty, reeking of decay. DeMao spoke into the air, promising never to invade their privacy again. Suddenly, 2 blue lights appeared, forming ghostly figures. The spirits stood silently apart. Surprisingly, the ghost became DeMao's inspiration. He claimed they helped him with story ideas, but no one believed him.